Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Going over to South Korea, a spike in COVID-19 cases has prompted officials to raise alert levels as the country has reported 615 new cases. Its 30th day in a row of triple-digit daily jumps, and fears have been growing in the country that the virus spread is getting out of control, particularly in the greater capital area, Seoul.
Certainly has been, and 615 new cases have been registered today. It's the 30th day in a row of triple-digit daily jumps. As fears grow, the viral spread is getting out of control in the greater capital area so far. So this is going to be an alarming factor indeed. The country has added more than 5,300 to its caseload just in the past 10 days. Most of these transmissions were detected in the Seoul metropolitan area. Health workers are struggling to stem these transmissions tied to various places, including restaurants, schools, hospitals and long-term care facilities. There's concern that hospital capacities could become overwhelmed within weeks if the country fails to slow the resurgence of the virus. Health Minister Park Nung-ho said in a meeting that the capital area is now a COVID-19 war zone and is now pleading for vigilance amongst these citizens, and said that the country may have to further increase social distancing to prevent the viral resurgence.
Yes, and this is happening amid some criticism of President Moon Jae-in's government that they might have moved too quickly in their easing of social distancing restrictions. This is what they did back in October, putting those restrictions at their lowest since the virus had emerged. And officials have been scrambling to restore some restrictions in Seoul over the past weeks as infections have been growing. They've shut down, for instance, entertainment venues, leisure destinations, gyms, karaoke rooms, and in-person school classes as well, putting some limits on restaurants, stating they could only provide deliveries and takeouts after 9 p.m. Health Minister Park Nung-ho also said there was a risk of the virus spreading if nothing was done. He said it's a dangerous situation on the verge of expanding into a nationwide pandemic, and they've been attempting to sort of keep things under control as well with a curfew. It's not just restaurants having to close at 9 p.m. They're also closing other dining and leisure destinations as well. But certainly prompts a lot of fears, as South Korea was touted as one of the big success stories early on in the pandemic, but certainly means you just can't let go and take things too easy in this time.
No, you can't at all. It's still a reality. It still is something that really is going to affect our daily lives until the vaccine is completely rolled out across the globe and in vast numbers as well. So it is kind of tragic in terms of what's going on. But what we'll do now is we'll take a bit of a breather and we'll focus a little bit more on what Japan is doing, because its space exploration has taken a bit of a leap in terms of what's going on. All of this will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis. If you'd like to send us your thoughts and messages and also get involved in the discussions here on the Morning Majlis, you can do so on the text lines 4215. We'll be right back here on the Morning Majlis.
Stocks, docks and barrels. This morning's Big Business Recap.
Yeah, big business recap indeed. Lots of positive sentiment here in the United Arab Emirates. The race to recovery, the race to see what's going to happen. Foreign investment into the UAE is expected to surge by 35% after an overhaul of the commercial companies law, according to a statement by Dubai Economy yesterday.
Yes.
And we're also seeing developments across other sectors, particularly when it comes to confidence about recovery. Now, another new survey, this time by HSBC Navigator survey, said that about 9 in 10 companies in the country, they expect to be profitable by the end of 2022, compared with the global average of 81%.
Yes, and according to HSBC's regional head of commercial banking in the MENA region in Turkey, Daniel Howlett, said UAE companies have always been resilient and innovative. Said despite the slowdown during the pandemic, business is slowly returning to pre-COVID levels, and companies are finding ways to maximize their potential, adapt to the new environment, and really focus on sustainable measures to help their companies grow and be able to future-proof them from unexpected disruptions. Now, this poll looked at more than 10,000 companies in 39 markets, including 151 companies in the UAE and another 560 in the MENA region in Turkey. And the study gauged their sentiment and expectations in the short to medium term on various issues like outlook, future strategy, international trade, supply chains, and sustainability. But the UAE did really well in this survey as one of the first countries in the region to unveil stimulus packages to protect businesses from the coronavirus-induced slowdowns. That has been attributed as a major reason why.
Yeah, and a number of them, more than 8 in 10 UAE businesses said they will increase their investments next year, compared with 67% worldwide, according to the findings of the survey. Product and process innovation, marketing and customer experience were the 3 most cited investment priorities. 9 in 10 UAE companies said they are optimistic about next 1 to 2 years, compared with 72% worldwide. Only 8% had a negative outlook, compared with 22% globally. Now, these are the companies surveyed by HSBC Navigator survey. But looking elsewhere across the globe in terms of business sentiments, Asian shares had dropped from a record peak on today, in fact, especially after the reports emerging that the US was preparing to impose new sanctions on some Chinese officials, highlighting geopolitical tensions. But here in the Middle East, we're also very optimistic about the oil prices. Though today they've faced a little bit of a drop, they're still trading. Brent crude is still trading at $49.05. WTI crude at $46.07. Remember the days in the middle of the pandemic, oil prices were down to $35 a barrel. And some analysts are also expecting oil prices to hit $60 a barrel. So we might see some changes over the coming few weeks, but really at the moment, some positive sentiment emerging from the United Arab Emirates. Yeah, definitely. And what we're looking at now is, in terms of positive sentiments, we're starting to see that in a concrete fashion with the GITEX 2020, for instance, the biggest tech event of the region that's taking place at the moment. And this really shows how the UAE is on that fast track to recovery from the pandemic, hosting those events, hosting those exhibitions, and paving the way for the business community and investors from around the world to join and become part of this country as well. Yeah, it's all about making sure that there is a powerful punch towards optimism. We are looking at a very, very positive outlook and sentiments emerging from the United Arab Emirates about increasing business activity in the region, events going on, and we also talked about the furniture event that's going to be taking place here in the Emirate of Sharjah as well. So much to celebrate, so much to look forward to. And in line with that, we'll play a bit of sports headlines courtesy of Emmanuel Majali, and we shall be returning right after that and continuing the discussions here on the Morning Majlis.
Pulse 95. The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95. The former Uruguayan president, Tabaré Vázquez, has passed away at the age of 80 after suffering from lung cancer, according to a tweet by his son yesterday. The center-left politician and oncologist was president of Uruguay twice, from 2005 to 2010 and from 2015 to 2020. He was diagnosed with cancer last year towards the end of his second term. The Broad Front party he belonged to ran the cattle farming country of 3.4 million people for a period of 15 years until elections last year. Now, according to his son Alvaro, he said he died at home in the presence of family and friends, and went on to thank all Uruguayans for the love that he received over the years.
Yep, and it was a pretty big news, and it really got everyone's attention because he was a son of a union leader who grew up in working-class district in the capital. He was popular with the Uruguayans for a mix of pro-business economic policies and strong welfare programs, which helped kickstart a decade of robust growth and slashed poverty after a deep crisis in the early 2000s, and really goes to show how much love he's received, and you know, to be belonging from a cattle farming country of 3.4 million people, and you know, really he being the people's man. I think that was the image that he had built up, and once you lose such a powerful figure, it does unite the country, but really remembers and pays tribute to what he's achieved over the years in office.
Definitely, and he was quite popular. In fact, when he first became president, initially had promised changes that would, quote, shake the roots of the trees, but governed on a relatively cautious note, avoiding the constitutional changes and polarization that have plagued Latin American nations and caused upheavals and revolutions and so forth and so on. But he did overhaul the healthcare system. He did expand aid for families, children, and the elderly, and contributed to an improved standard of living and a sharp reduction in poverty in the country of Uruguay, according to analysts and political scientists. And because he was so popular on the time he left office, his successor, Jose Mojica, a folksy former guerrilla, immediately was elected by the people. Also, the fact that Uruguay's constitution forbids immediate re-election is another factor here as well. But yes, he's behind the coalition known as the Broad Front. They've held power for 15 years and is widely seen as a successful example of democracy in the South American region as well. And Tabare himself had some humble beginnings, was born in a tin-roofed shack in the working-class Lateja neighborhood back in 1940, later served as the head of a local football team that went on to win the national championship as well, and has worked all kinds of jobs as a young man, selling newspapers, working as a carpenter and installing windows before excelling in medical school and becoming an oncologist for a 6-year period before transitioning into politics as the mayor of Montevideo in 1989.
Yep, and he's certainly, you know, his legacy is something to be to remember, because one of his first acts as president, he announced a $200 million national emergency plan to assist the 20% of Uruguayans in poverty. Another aspect was he had a successful implementation of program where he did provide laptop computers to all primary school children in Uruguay. So it really goes to show how much of a vision he had, and certainly was a popular character, though he did have a troubling term, and it was due to the economic situation, and he had to leave office in 2010 as a result of poor economic situation which was experienced by Latin America, particularly Brazil and Argentina, and then had trickling effects leading to rise of crime and violence in Uruguay. So that's what really happened. But sadly, the world has lost a very notable figure, and we will be keeping you posted with other developments across the globe. Well, time now for Morning Majlis to take a bit of a breather. We will return right after some musical entertainment here on Pulse 95. And when we do return, we're going to be celebrating all things Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival. We'll be hearing some of the thoughts and keynotes and some parts of the keynote addresses by Her Excellency Sheikh Abdul Al-Qasimi, as well as Najla Al-Midfa, as we talk about Sharjah entrepreneurship. Stay with us. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe. 95. Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories. Pulse.